Most people don't realize this, but one of the most exhausting things you can do to your psyche is explain yourself to people who were never trying to understand you. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, constantly, automatically. You explain why you feel the way you feel, why you need space, why you change your mind, why you're quiet today, why you're not okay, but not too not okay. And it feels normal, polite, mature, considerate. But psychology tells a very different story, because behind the compulsive need to explain yourself is not kindness, it's fear. Fear of being misunderstood, fear of being abandoned, fear of being rejected for simply being who you are. Carl Jung believed that the moment a person feels they must justify their existence, they have already stepped away from their own inner authority. And tonight we're going to talk about why this pattern forms, why it silently destroys self-worth, and what happens psychologically and spiritually when you finally stop explaining yourself. If this video resonates, stay with me until the end, because this is not about becoming cold or detached. It's about becoming whole. 1. The invisible habit that controls relationships. Most people don't realize how much of their life is shaped by one invisible behavior: the compulsion to justify. You justify your emotions so they don't seem inconvenient. You justify your decisions so they don't seem selfish. You justify your boundaries so they don't seem harsh. And slowly, without noticing, your life becomes a courtroom. You are always the defendant, and the world is always the judge. Jung observed that when a person repeatedly tries to convince others of who they are, it reveals a profound disconnection from the self, the deeper, instinctive core of identity. Because someone who is internally grounded does not need permission to exist, but someone who is not explains. Explaining becomes a survival strategy, a way to reduce tension, a way to keep belonging intact. But belonging built on self-erasure is not belonging at all. And if you're noticing this pattern in yourself, pause for a moment. This video isn't here to shame you. It's here to free you. If you haven't yet, gently tap the subscribe button. This channel is a space for psychological depth, not noise, where the need to explain is born. The need to explain yourself does not appear in adulthood. It is learned, usually early, quietly, repeatedly, in emotionally invalidating environments. Children are taught, without words, that their inner experience is unreliable. You're too sensitive. There's no reason to feel that way. You're exaggerating. Stop being dramatic. Each phrase leaves a mark. The child learns a devastating lesson. My feelings only matter if others agree with them. And so the psyche adapts. If I explain myself clearly enough, if I make sense, if I justify my emotions logically, maybe I'll be safe. This is not weakness. It is intelligence under pressure. But over time, the strategy hardens into identity. The adult no longer asks, "What do I feel?" They ask, "How can I make this understandable?" Jung would say, this is the loss of internal authority. And without internal authority, the self begins to dissolve into performance. 3. The fear beneath every explanation. Behind every compulsive explanation lives a fear, not always conscious, but always present. The fear of being rejected for existing without justification. So you explain your sadness as tiredness, your anger as stress, your withdrawal as busyness. You translate your humanity into something acceptable. And each time you do, you quietly abandon yourself. Jung warned that when the ego becomes preoccupied with external validation, it turns against the self. You stop trusting your instincts. You doubt your emotional truth. You seek confirmation for experiences that should need none. And this creates a subtle form of submission, not to people, but to fear. If this is resonating, stay with me. The turning point is closer than you think. 4. Self-explanation as self-betrayal. Compulsive explanation is not neutral. It is a daily act of self-betrayal. Every time you laugh when you don't feel like it. Every time you say yes while your body says no. Every time you soften your truth so it won't disturb others. You fragment. Jung believed neurosis emerges when the psyche is divided against itself. And what divides us more than living a life shaped around being acceptable? The tragedy is that this behavior is rewarded. You're called easygoing, mature, understanding, but inside there is exhaustion. Because the soul knows when it's being silenced. 5. The birth of internal authority. Internal authority is the ability to validate your experience without negotiation. It is the moment you stop asking, "Will they understand me?" and start saying, "This is true for me." This shift is not intellectual. It is visceral. It feels terrifying at first, because silence, real silence, forces you to face the fear of not being chosen. Jung called this the desert of individuation, the place where you stand alone, without approval. But this is where freedom begins. If you're finding value here, gently like this video. It helps this work reach others who need it. 6. Why silence is so powerful. Silence born from integrity is not absence. It is presence. When you stop explaining yourself, you deactivate manipulation. You disrupt unhealthy dynamics. You expose imbalance. People who relied on your insecurity feel unsettled. And that's not cruelty. That's clarity. Silence says, "I accept myself." The conversation is over, and the psyche relaxes, because it no longer has to perform. 7. Psychological integrity and wholeness. Integrated people do not convince. They communicate. They speak from coherence, not fear. Integrity is trusting your internal signals, even when they don't make sense yet. Jung believed the self speaks first through feeling, not logic. And when you honor that, your presence changes. You don't chase respect. You emanate it. When the world responds differently, when you stop explaining yourself, relationships reorganize. Some dissolve, some deepen, some reveal their true nature. You are no longer available for roles that require self-abandonment. And the world adjusts, not because you demanded respect, but because you embodied it. Finally, the quiet revolution. Stopping self-explanation is not arrogance. It is remembrance. The remembrance that you do not need permission to exist. And when the impulse to explain returns, and it will, pause, breathe, and choose yourself. Tell me in the comments, what explanation are you ready to release? If this message resonated, share it, subscribe, and continue this journey with the Mind Kit.